The wedding ring almost slipped from my trembling fingers the moment my boss looked me dead in the eyes and whispered, "Tonight, you're my husband." I laughed at first because I thought it had to be another one of her cold corporate jokes, the kind rich executives made when they forgot normal people had feelings. But she didn't laugh back. Her face stayed pale and tense as the elevator doors opened behind us into the glittering lobby of the most expensive hotel in Chicago. Cameras flashed outside the glass entrance. Men in black suits guarded every corner. And standing across the marble floor was a silver-haired billionaire staring directly at her with the kind of hatred that could freeze blood. That was the exact moment I realized she wasn't joking at all. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can change lives and second chances can heal broken hearts, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Lifeline Vibes. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more people around the world. My name is Corbin Hale, and until that day, I was invisible. I was 29 years old, drowning in overdue bills, surviving paycheck to paycheck, and working as a junior financial assistant at a giant investment company where nobody even remembered my birthday. My morning started before sunrise and ended with cheap microwave dinners eaten alone in a tiny apartment above a laundromat. I had spent most of my life believing hard work would eventually pay off, but after years of sacrifices, all I had to show for it was exhaustion and debt. Then there was Selene Vaughn. She was the youngest CEO in the company's history, famous in business magazines, feared in boardrooms, and impossibly distant from ordinary people like me. She walked through the office like a storm wrapped in elegance. Sharp gray eyes, tailored suits, flawless posture, and a silence that made people nervous. Nobody knew much about her personal life because she kept it buried beneath layers of professionalism. Rumors followed her constantly. Some said she came from old money. Others claimed she destroyed competitors without mercy. But every employee agreed on one thing: Selene Vaughn trusted nobody. Except somehow, that night, she chose me. Earlier that afternoon, I had been called into her office unexpectedly. I thought I was getting fired because I had accidentally sent an unfinished spreadsheet to the wrong department. My hands were sweating before I even knocked on her door. But instead of anger, I found Selene standing near the giant windows overlooking the city, staring down at the streets far below with a look I had never seen before. Fear. She turned toward me slowly and asked a question that changed everything. "Do you know how to act?" I remember blinking in confusion while she walked closer. She explained that a charity gala was happening that evening, attended by investors, politicians, and powerful families. She was supposed to appear with her fiancé, but hours earlier he had abandoned her after discovering secrets about her family business that he wanted no part of. If she showed up alone, rumors would explode across the media by morning, and several billion-dollar deals could collapse. Then she said the words I would never forget. "I need you to pretend to be my husband tonight." I should have refused immediately. Nothing about the situation made sense. I was just a low-level employee with wrinkled shirts and student loans. But before I could answer, she looked away and quietly admitted something that shocked me even more. "You're the only person here who has ever looked at me like a human being instead of a machine." That sentence hit harder than she probably realized. Because beneath her expensive appearance and intimidating reputation, I suddenly saw someone painfully lonely. Someone exhausted from pretending to be untouchable. So against every ounce of logic in my body, I agreed. The transformation happened fast. Within an hour, stylists fitted me into a custom black tuxedo that probably cost more than my monthly rent. My messy hair was fixed. My cheap shoes disappeared. When I looked into the mirror, I barely recognized myself anymore. But nothing prepared me for seeing Selene descend the staircase of the hotel ballroom in a dark emerald gown that shimmered beneath the chandeliers like flowing water. The entire room seemed to pause when she entered. Yet despite all the glamour surrounding her, her eyes searched only for me. And then she reached for my hand. The ballroom exploded with whispers the moment we walked in together. Wealthy guests stared at me with suspicion while photographers rushed closer. Selene stayed composed, introducing me as her husband with terrifying confidence. But I could feel the tension in her fingers every time someone mentioned family or marriage. Something deeper was wrong. Something dangerous. That danger revealed itself during dinner. The silver-haired billionaire I had seen earlier approached our table with a smile so fake it looked painful. His name was Everett Voss, one of the most powerful investors in the country and apparently someone connected to Selene's past. The moment he spoke, the air around us changed. He congratulated us on our marriage, but his eyes carried a threat beneath every word. Then he leaned closer and quietly asked Selene if she had finally told her husband the truth about what happened to her father. I watched the color drain from her face instantly. That single sentence haunted the rest of the evening. Selene became distracted, distant, almost trembling whenever Everett came near us. At one point, she excused herself and disappeared onto the rooftop terrace. I followed her outside and found her standing alone beneath the city lights, gripping the railing so tightly her knuckles turned white. That was when the real story finally began to surface. Years earlier, Selene's father had built the company from nothing, but before his death, he uncovered massive financial crimes involving several elite investors, including Everett Voss. Billions of dollars had been hidden through illegal accounts. When her father threatened to expose them, he died suddenly in what authorities called a car accident. Selene had spent years suspecting it wasn't an accident at all. Since taking over the company, she had secretly gathered evidence against the people responsible, waiting for the right moment to expose them. But tonight, Everett somehow knew. And now she feared her life was in danger too. For the first time since meeting her, Selene completely broke down. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Just quietly, painfully, like someone who had carried fear alone for far too long. Tears rolled down her face as she admitted she didn't know who to trust anymore. Her fiancé left because he was terrified. Her board members only cared about money. Every friend she once had disappeared when things became dangerous. And somehow, out of everyone in her world, the only person still standing beside her was a broke office employee pretending to be her husband. I didn't know what to say. I didn't have power or influence or solutions. But I stayed beside her on that rooftop until her breathing calmed. And before we returned to the ballroom, she looked at me differently than before. Softer. Warmer. Like the walls around her heart had cracked open just a little. The next morning, I thought the entire bizarre experience was over. I expected to return to my desk and continue my ordinary life. Instead, I woke up to headlines all over the internet announcing Selene Vaughn's secret marriage. Photos of us filled every business website in the country. Reporters waited outside the office building. Employees stared at me like I had become someone else overnight. Then things got worse. Someone broke into my apartment. Nothing valuable was stolen, but my place had been searched completely. Drawers emptied. Papers scattered everywhere. And written on my bathroom mirror in red paint were 4 terrifying words. Stay away from Selene. Fear consumed me instantly. I called Selene, and within an hour, security escorted me to her private penthouse because she refused to let me stay alone. The woman who once seemed emotionally unreachable now looked genuinely terrified for my safety. She blamed herself for dragging me into her dangerous world. But by then, something inside me had changed too. I couldn't walk away anymore. Over the following days, our fake marriage slowly became something neither of us could explain. We shared breakfasts while reviewing financial documents. We stayed awake late into the night discussing childhood memories, regrets, and dreams we had buried long ago. I learned that Selene loved old bookstores, hated thunderstorms, and secretly played piano when nobody was around. She learned about my late mother, my struggles growing up poor, and the shame I carried from years of feeling like I would never become enough. For the first time in years, neither of us felt alone. But peace never lasts long in stories like this. One afternoon, Selene discovered that Everett planned to finalize a major merger within days, which would erase the remaining evidence against him forever. She decided it was time to expose everything publicly. The only problem was that doing so could destroy her company, ruin her reputation, and possibly put both our lives at greater risk. Still, she chose to fight. The final confrontation happened during a daytime shareholders' conference attended by hundreds of investors and journalists. The atmosphere inside the massive auditorium felt suffocating. Cameras streamed the event live across national television while Everett sat confidently near the front row, clearly believing he had already won. Selene stepped onto the stage with trembling hands but determined eyes. And then she told the truth. Every hidden account. Every fraudulent deal. Every threat. Every suspicious detail surrounding her father's death. The audience erupted into chaos while reporters rushed to broadcast every second. Everett tried to interrupt her repeatedly, but she continued speaking through tears, refusing to back down anymore. Then federal agents entered the auditorium. The silence that followed felt unreal. Everett's face collapsed the moment investigators approached him publicly. Years of corruption finally caught up to him in front of the entire world. Investors panicked. Executives shouted. Cameras flashed endlessly. But in the middle of all that chaos, Selene simply stood there crying quietly, as though the weight crushing her heart for years had finally lifted. And somehow, in that overwhelming moment, her eyes searched only for me again. After the conference ended, we walked outside into the warm afternoon sunlight together while reporters screamed questions from behind barricades. The city noise faded around us as Selene stopped walking and looked at me with tears shining in her eyes. She admitted that somewhere between the fake smiles, the danger, and the sleepless nights, she had fallen in love with the one man who expected nothing from her. Not her money. Not her status. Not her power. Just her. And truthfully, I had fallen for her too long before realizing it. Not for the glamorous CEO the world feared, but for the lonely woman who stood trembling on that rooftop believing nobody would stay beside her. Months later, life looked completely different. The company survived. Everett faced criminal investigations. And Selene slowly rebuilt both her business and herself. As for me, I no longer felt invisible. I had discovered something more valuable than wealth or success. I had found purpose. Love. Courage. The strangest part was that none of it started with romance. It started with a terrified woman whispering, "Pretend you're my husband tonight." And somewhere along the way, pretending became real. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Lifeline Vibes. Stories like these remind us that sometimes the people who save us appear when we least expect them. And before this story ends, tell us in the comments, do you believe real love can begin in the most unexpected situations? Because sometimes life changes forever with one impossible request, and one person willing to stay when everyone else walks away.